My dad told me, he said, if you took all your accomplishments in your life, right, every one of them, and they were all trophies, right, and you put them up on your mantle there, so you can see all your accomplishments in life, all these trophies, right? He said those trophies are not who you are, right? That thing that's inside of you, that thing that pushed you and drove you to accomplish all of those things, that's who you are.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Weapon X Holsters, quality handmade Kydex holsters made right here in Southern Utah. You can stop by the store, 1397 West Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We are episode 53. Something I've noticed on other people's podcasts is they always introduce themselves. And I'm like, well, it's the Derick Leg Podcast, so I don't know if I need to introduce myself, but I'm the host, Derick Leg. We'll start that a year in. So I'm Derick Leg. Today we've got a repeat guest, and it's cool for me because this is Tyler Campbell. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, man?
Good. So it's cool for me because you were our first guest ever, and you were one that we had talked about. I had talked about starting this for months, and then I was like, dude, you're on it if I ever do one, and then... So it's been a cool thing for me to
That's awesome.
Bring you back on. We've been talking for a couple weeks about lining this up.
Trying to get it lined up again. Yep.
Yeah.
And a couple things come up here and there, but.
Well, and then I was thinking, like, I know it's not exact, but like 52 weeks in a year. So I'm like, the 53rd episode would be like our new season or however you want to put it. So I was like, let's bring Tyler back on 53.
Sounds good. Nailed it.
Yeah. We'll do a couple updates on really both of us. We've had a few things change, especially last year. And then I've got some like deep family questions I want to kind of dive into with you because we've always had a good connection with, discussing family. And then we'll see where we go. Yeah.
Well, I gotta give you a quick little podcast hug, man. This has been awesome. It's been really cool. It's been fun to follow. I know the last time I was over at your shop, I mentioned it, but I think it's worth repeating is that it's been so cool to see. Like you have these huge podcasts that everybody listens to, and they have such a variety of people on. But it's been really cool to see the variety of people we have right here in our community.
Yeah,
and you get these people on and their stories. I mean, some heartbreaking stories, some inspirational stories, some awesome stuff of like that. Just I think is pretty cool. For our community here in Southern Utah, of just what a great place this is, and all the shared experience of our area down here. So it's been really cool.
Thanks.
It's been fun to listen to. So yeah.
Well, and that's I mention it every now and then, but people are like, "What's your podcast about?" And I'm just like, everything. Like and like being a business guy, like what's your target market? Like what's your focus? What's your number one seller product? Whatever. And so just being like bland on what the purpose of the podcast is, like it bothers me.
Right.
But at the same time, like that's what it is.
It's like watching go through all the Seinfeld episodes again, and the whole concept of it's a show about nothing.
Yeah. There you go. Well,
it's a podcast about nothing.
There was that. I need to figure out what that song is. Maybe Mallory can figure it out. But there's that song about the famous people in my town or whatever.
Okay.
The famous people you'll never meet or whatever. And that's kind of where I was like, well, that's kind of what this is, is it's all these, he's like, oh, my buddy's the sheriff and this person's the teacher of the year, and I thought, well, that's kind of what this is. We've had hunters, we've had military, we've had, like I always kind of throw it out there. We had a yoga instructor,
right.
We had a suicide survivor. Right. We had addiction, still working on addiction, but addiction.
Yeah.
I was going to say successful addiction stories, but I think he wouldn't say that. He's still working on it, but you know what I mean? Like, so there's so many different things that we've touched. A bunch
of entrepreneurs, business guys. And it's been cool.
Yeah. And I thought in the beginning, when I thought about starting this, I was like, gosh, dude, no one's going to want to listen to me and my 5 buddies, like every month I'm going to have the same 4 guys on.
Right.
And so it And we've never really turned anyone down that's
Yeah.
asked to be on. Sometimes we've had scheduling conflicts, but it's been cool for me because like I never would have thought that I would have sat down and had a hour and a half conversation with a yoga instructor. Right.
Well, that's kind of cool too, though, because it's like it's opening you up as well, because it's unexpected. You don't really know what's going to come from it. Like, you sit down and talk to me, and it's we kind of know the topics where you're usually going to talk about. It's going to be guns, hunting, some stuff like that. It's going to be somewhere in that realm, and you bring somebody that's totally kind of almost like out of your comfort zone a little bit, and it just enables you to educate yourself. Because I think I don't know who said this. Somebody said it, but that ignorance is a choice. It's up to you, and you can remain ignorant, or you can educate yourself, and that's you're not going to get that by not going and talking to people about things that you don't know anything about,
right?
And take a chance of maybe you look like a dope because you don't know.
Well, and that's what I think Mallory and I kind of team up on that really good, because I can bring in some of the side of the stuff that I'm about. Well, Mallory does yoga almost every day, and so like that was her kind of side of it, and I've met. There's probably a third of our guests that I met at the studio. And so it wasn't even people I knew.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Mallory handles all of the scheduling and all of that. So it's not even like I'm like, hey, Thursday night, she does all that. Yeah. So, but yeah, anyway, man, let's, I know you're getting into some new things.
I gotta say, you've been a little bit of an inspiration to me, because I love that about you, how you're just like, you're not afraid, man. You're not afraid to go try something new and be like, hey, I think I can maybe make some money doing this, and let's give it a whirl, and I've always admired that about you, and not just you, your family's like that.
Yeah.
Your brothers are like, they're always legs there, and those guys are getting into something.
Right.
So,
well, and I think for me, that's only been the last like 5 years.
Right.
Because before that, I was so terrified of losing everything that I'd been so disciplined to have, But yeah, recently, and even more like the last year, I've been like, oh yeah, dude, we can make this work. Yeah. Like, oh, let's move this money here. Let's leverage that, and try to move some stuff around.
Yeah, because I think, you I don't know if you agree with this or not, but not that, being wealthy is like the end all be all goal of life, right? We all know wealthy people who are miserable as hell.
Sure.
But I think, being a dad and a husband, there's a big part of your life that you're always trying to think it's on your mind of like providing for your family and wanting to give them a life with opportunity, and a part of that just is money, is having some resources to be able to set your family up to be successful, and the people that I know personally that have done well in life, they're not just doing one thing, they're doing multiple things, and that seems to be a very I don't know, would you agree with that, or would you?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, money doesn't solve all your problems, but it solves them faster. Right. And so like growing up in my family,
violence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. But like growing up in my family, I would think back of things that my dad had to do because the financials weren't there.
Yeah.
And so he would just have to figure it out. And he did a lot of the times. But, like the frustration, and he had a short fuse, so he would get mad, and all the things that we were exposed to because of that, versus say like my brother Adam or I, we blow a tire on something, we just pay someone to go put a new tire on,
right?
or something happens to a vehicle, we just go pay the mechanic shop to fix it. Right. Or my dad would be under there wrenching on it for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you're not the guy that's YouTubing it.
Yeah, well, dude, I always have been until because like recently I've realized, and by no means do I think I'm like super successful. Like I'm not saying that, but I've realized that being able to have that money to spend to save time.
Well, and there is some truth to that though, because like there's like that balance between what am I putting out for in this time period versus what I could bring in this time period.
Yeah.
And if it cost me $100 to pay the mechanic to do it for an hour, it would cost me $25, but it's going to take me 4 hours to do it. or I could let him do it and I'll go make some money over in
Right.
this other thing I got going on and make all of that and maybe a little bit more. It's like that, finding that balance of yeah, I can do this, but if that guy can do it faster and way better than me, and I could be doing something else,
Right.
then it,
Well, and I'll go a step further, and I know you'll
Yeah.
agree with this, and I've had this transition the last year and a half. So like you're saying, well, I can pay him $100, and in that 2 hours, I can go make $200.
Right.
Well, I'll even take it a step further of I can pay him $100, and that gives me 2 hours with my son.
right.
And so
Yep.
having that is like you were going into with the father thing
Yeah,
as well.
definitely.
I've had a lot of that in my mind of like, yeah, I could go fix the boat. Like I lost a bearing on our pontoon boat trailer going out to Quell, right? My tire like came off. And
Oh, geez.
and luckily I was right next to a church parking lot and I could pull into the parking lot and it took us some time to like get it figured out and kind of get back on the road, but I just went straight to the like what is it, Rogers Performance Marine. I just went
okay.
straight to Rogers, dropped it off and paid him to fix it. And then we went fishing, like right after
yeah.
that. And so that was what would have happened, 15 years ago with me or us growing up, that would have been a huge, we wouldn't even have had a boat, but like that would have been a huge ordeal. You never would have went fishing.
Yeah.
Dad would have been chucking tools,
Yeah.
I've just seen that transition recently in my
Right.
life.
Yeah, and I think there's like another element to that too. Is just the way that the different times we live in. I always tell people growing up in a tiny rural community in Wyoming,
Yeah.
and I learned how to drive a stick shift. I was probably people don't believe me when I tell you this, but you go live in Wyoming, and this would not be weird. Like 9 or 10 years old, you're out there driving a stick shift truck.
Yeah.
And part of it was we went backpacking and camping a lot. A lot of times with my dad and I. So we say you go up there to the Henry's Fork Trailhead, you're back in there 30 miles or so, and Dad gets hurt. Like nobody's coming to get you, right? Your choices are you can start walking and try to find somebody, and hopefully maybe you run into somebody, or you drive yourself off the mountain.
Yeah.
And so that was honestly the whole principle behind it was like, if something happened to me, you need to be able to drive back to town.
Right.
And even if you're a kid, and it's like that whole concept of, be prepared to self-rescue, because
Sure.
there are situations where nobody's coming. So you got to be, and I think I'm grateful that I had that mentality as a kid. And then, so now in life, I think that's why we notice this change. Whereas if you never had that before, all you ever did was just take it to have somebody. You never had to try to figure it out
Right.
on your own. And so you may not even have that ability. I, not to throw any of my brother-in-laws under the bus. I won't mention any names, but he broke down at the Lowe's. And so we towed him up to the mechanic shop. And I was getting ready to tow him, and I'm telling him, hey, your truck's not on, so you're gonna have no power steering. You're gonna have to really crank this wheel to get it to go once we start. And I just see, and he's looking at me, just giving me this blank look, and he's finally just like, I'm like, hey, you ever been towed before? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I said, you want me to do it? And he said, yeah. So I did it. And then afterwards, I'm talking to my other brother-in-law who also grew up in Wyoming, and I'm like, hey man, how many times you been towed? And he's like, I don't know.
Like, can't count
How many times you been stuck? Like, I have no idea. Like so many times. And in those times, that you learn that
Right.
doing those things of like, okay, well, we're broke down. What are we going to do? We got to figure this out. We got to get unstuck. We got to, that's valuable. I'm grateful I grew up like that.
Sure. Having that problem solving skill.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the growth of that was keeping a level head long enough to figure it out.
Sure.
And I had two extremes in my life of that example. I had my grandpa and then I had my dad.
Right.
And my mom's dad, my grandpa, I'd always see him do this, but it didn't mean anything to me until I was in my teen years and really started implementing it in my 20s. When he would get to that point where my dad would blow, my grandpa, he'll almost like just sit down and he'll be like, okay, I'm a smart person. I can figure this out.
Right.
And he calms himself down and he goes through and so when I would get to that point, I would literally stop and be like, I'm smart. Like we're smart guys. We can figure out how to get through this. and then you work through the problem, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But having a cool head long enough to do that for me was always an issue.
Yeah. You know, and that's, and having that example of your grandpa is awesome, you know, and it's also, I mean, having a bad example is helpful as well. You know, you see those through your life, but I always, you know, that's a lesson I teach my boys of like, hey, you know, when things are going south, panic is not going to help you solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to help. You know, crying about it's not going to help. You want to cry about it later, that's fine.
Get through this.
But in the moment, like that's not going to be helpful to solving the problem. And so you need to just stop, relax for a second, gather yourself. Okay, what are we going to do?
Right.
You know, and that's that process can happen fast if need be, but it's still.
Well, and I think it's like a muscle too. Like the more you do it, the more you exercise it, the better and faster and more efficient you are.
And I'm grateful too of, you know, getting my boys out and doing stuff and having some of that kind of stuff happen, you know, and
I could see you like almost putting yourself in the position.
Oh man, and we've been in a few of them that I'm just like, oh, this might have been too far. But you know, letting them see that of being like, okay, you know, because that's actually, I mean, that's a great example of leadership, which I think in our culture now, if I was to point one thing that I think is just really kind of a tragedy of our modern day is the lack of real leaders.
Yeah.
Real leaders don't panic. Real leaders don't lose their shit. They think and they problem solve, right? They bring people together to, all right, this is a problem and we got to figure it out. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter whose job it is. The fact is this needs to be done. And us right here, we got to figure this out.
Right.
And, I'm you know, grateful for, you know, the leaders that I've known in my life and the examples that I've been around to see what good leaders look like. And trying to, you know, pass that on to my boys. But I have to tell a funny story about my wife.
Okay.
All right, she may kill me. I don't know. I don't know if she's going to listen to this.
So we probably won't be able to check in with you next year again.
So she's got this awesome Jeep, right?
Right.
And it's got these cool lights and everything on it to light up the whole desert and everything. And there's something going on. The wiring job looked like a homemade abortion. It was that bad.
It's just rats.
Yeah, just like, what are we doing here? And so I take it into this guy, and I just tell him, I need you to go back through this and just make it right, man. And so he does a cool job and everything, so it works. And so we get that night. I'm like, hey, let's go for a ride out in the desert and try out these lights, And she's like, okay. So we're getting in the truck, taking off. This has got to be like maybe February, like just this little bit ago. And I throw, my coat in the back of the truck, my water jug, and my handgun. I'm taking that with me. She's like, "What are you bringing all that stuff for?" And I'm like, just in case, you never know.
Yeah.
Something might happen, and we get a flat tire or something. And she's like, "We're not gonna get a flat tire, but then what are we gonna do?" I was like, "Well, it'll be an adventure."
Yeah.
Guarantee
you'll figure it out.
Be a joke. So we go out there, and that Glitter Mountain Road.
Mm-hmm.
So we cross the creek right there, and where it breaks off, and you go out to Glitter Mountain, we just go straight.
Okay.
Like that, kind of that 2-track that would take you back around, like what's that, Black Rock Mountain?
I know what you mean. I haven't
there.
been that whole way.
So we're going straight out there. So we go out there a little ways, and long story short, we get out there a few miles, and I feel to see the lights starting to dim a little bit. And the little check engine light comes on, and I'm thinking, oh man, I hope we're not overdoing our alternator here,
yeah,
right?
Smoking an alternator.
So I'm like, hey, we turn around and we head back. And
did you tell her? Like, could you kind of alarm her at this
point?
Yeah,
not alarm her, but we're talking about it.
Okay.
Like, hey, something's going on with the lights. And I was like, man, I don't know. So we turn around and we're driving back, and we get, not very far down the road, and lights all the way out. All the lights are out.
Yeah.
And so I got my handgun, my Glock 21 out the window with the
lighting the way.
The light on. It's lighting the way. And we get like a little ways further, and then the truck just, or the Jeep, and it's done.
Battery smoked.
And we're out. And so, she's getting out and I'm, I didn't panic. I was like, all right, we're going to do this and this. And the service isn't awesome out there, And so we grab my coat, my water bottle, my
Remember
handgun.
these?
Yeah. And we're walking back. And like, it's kind of like we're going along and she keeps, you want me to turn on the flashlight. And I'm telling her, I don't want to just waste the light. I'm like, if we just sit here, for a minute, our eyes will adjust to the light. And she looks at me like I'm just the biggest dumbass. And she's like, her eyes will not adjust to the light. And I'm like, yes, they will. I swear they will. Like, you just walk and you can kind of see the shimmer of the path. And she's like going along and she's like getting mad at me. Just turn your light on. I can't see anything. And she's going, what if there's stuff out here? And I'm like, what's out here that's gonna get us?
Yeah,
and
you're like, I'm the scariest thing out here.
She goes, so she's getting frustrated, and all of a sudden she just goes, Tyler, I'm freaking out.
I'm at my limit.
So I'm just like, oh, it just caught me. It's so funny because the same thing. Like that was her first experience of like really being broken down.
Yeah. And you're like, we're just walking back.
We're just walking
service.
back. I mean, St. George is right there. Worst
See all
case
those
scenario,
lights.
we'll walk all the way back. And long story short, we were able to finally get a message out to her or call her brother, and he came down and met us at where that Glitter Mountain Road breaks off, and then we ended up going back, and the next day I had to drive my truck out there and tow that thing all the way back, and so she got to get towed as well.
So she had that experience.
So I was like telling her, hey, see, we had an adventure, and she did not think it was a fun adventure. But yeah,
that's awesome. But that where do you think you got a lot of that from? Was it military background? Was it Wyoming background?
I would say, yeah, way before the military. Just growing up, I think in a rural community like that, where I mean, I could do probably, especially I've had a couple buddies here that I grew up with, just hours of stories, and we're not special. I mean, a lot of those rural communities are like that,
Sure.
where you break down somewhere and your parents tell you, well, just hitchhike home, but make sure they have a 19 on their license plate.
Yeah.
Because in Wyoming, the first two numbers is the county you live in.
Yeah.
And so Uinta County was 19. And then, just hitchhike home, but just make sure it's a 19 on their license plate.
Dude, I heard this joke today. About hitchhikers. So this guy's driving down the road, and hitchhiker's on the side of the road. He picks him up. And it's silent. They get a couple miles down the road, and the hitchhiker turns to him and says, man, like, I'm kind of surprised you picked me up. How do you know I'm not a serial killer? And the driver turns to him and says, what's the chances there's 2 serial killers in this truck? I don't know why, dude. When I read that, I started dying.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, let's give me a little update about what you're doing with business now.
Yeah, well, so I started working. I had a good friend of mine he's a managing partner of a wealth management firm called Avera Capital, and I started working with him in their benefits department. So did a lot with the insurance side of that. So doing all the the healthcare, the Medicare, the life insurance, all that stuff that goes along with that. And it was kind of a thing that was a few years in the works. It was something we'd talk about at elk camp. And he kind of always encouraged me just off my personality of like, hey man, I think you do really well in this, just your ability to communicate and talk to people and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was something that I, it kind of had the back of my mind of like we talked about, of having like multiple ways that you're bringing in some income and realizing that, I like, doing masonry work right now is well, I don't actually do the masonry work, but, running that side of the business of, it's still, there's that physical element to it. You're outside and going, man, I don't know if I want to be doing this when I was 50.
Especially right now.
Yeah, like I just out here need to use my brains a little bit and maybe use my mind to try to make some money and not just the physical, And so kind of like the thing that really kind of made me a little bit more serious about it was my mom and dad getting a little bit older and that whole realm for them is just like you might as well be, writing it in Chinese,
right,
script or whatever they call it.
That's most people.
Yeah,
it's hieroglyphics.
Yeah, exactly. And so I, just because of their questions, I started looking into this stuff a little bit and going, man, I can see, why this is so confusing to people and why there's all these ins and outs of it and everything, and then just kind of looking into it more and more and going, man, I think I could do this. I think, which I think it's a good thing to have in your life, is to have that confidence of being like seeing a challenge and like, I think I could do this. But I think it's good to be a little scared. I think it's good to have a challenge.
Get pushed.
I think push you a little bit. And I never in my life thought I'd be doing like more like sales type stuff, but it's different than I thought it would be. It's not like I don't feel like I'm a telemarketer. I'm getting
just cold calling people left and right.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can get different leads, but it's when talking to people who have an actual need, and then not just selling them some random product, but like taking the time to learn and to understand the process and the different things that are out there, and seeing what their needs are, and then trying to find them something that's going to match those needs, and that's, you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
It's not like
fulfilling too.
Yeah. It's not like you're
not a used car salesman.
Yeah. Used car salesman. Yeah. Right. Like
I always use that, and it's terrible because I know a lot of good
guys there.
It's just stereotype.
Right. For sure. But that whole, it's not just, I mean, obviously you're making money off of commissions to some extent as well, but that you're selling them something that they actually is going to benefit and help them, help their family. When heaven forbid that day comes that something happens to them earlier in life, or it just happens to be they make it to that age and it's time to go, but that their family's set up, that the things are in line to help them, and it's been great. It's good. I think we've got a good team there that kind of can cover a lot of the bases, whether it's financial needs or the healthcare piece, or the life insurance or long-term care, whatever it is, and the different folks have whatever stage of life they're in, to be able to kind of help them be prepared, moving forward, and at least having a plan, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good thing. It's challenged me for sure.
Different speed.
Yeah, it's a different speed, and then being able to have those little victories, that because you'll have self-doubt, right? You start doing something, and you'll have those moments of self-doubt of like, man, I don't know, did I totally screw this up? And then you get these little victories, and you're like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. So
I think if you don't, like we were saying, getting pushed, if you don't have self-doubt, then you need to be doing something more.
Right. Something a little bit harder. Yeah.
If you're, that's that comfort, goes back to the comfort zone.
Yeah.
If you're still in that comfort zone, then you're not pushing and moving forward.
Yeah. I think, I think about when I went through the firearms instructor course when I was in Las Vegas, and there was a instructor in there who was talking to us about finding that balance between accuracy and speed. And which one's more important? Is it speed or is it accuracy? And how do you know which one is the most important? And so learning to train that. And I remember him saying that if you're not missing, then you're not shooting fast enough. You're not going hard enough.
Go faster.
Yeah, you need to be going faster to push that envelope. And if you're not having failures along the way, then you're not going hard enough. And
I like that.
I think that's
anyone that shoots or pistol shooting, competition, any of that stuff, you could definitely relate to that. I mean, I go shooting with my wife, and like I am 1,000 times faster than she is. Yeah. But she's 1,000 times more accurate than I am.
Squares it up. And
I mean, we'll put her at 7 yards at the shooting range, and she'll just knock the red out of the bullseye and have 0 flyers. Yeah. But I've gone through 10 boxes of ammo, and she's shot 1 magazine.
Yeah, my wife, she's not a not a gun girl. But she understands the need.
I mean, Amanda's the same way. Yeah, like she'll go hunt, she'll go shoot, but she'd rather be climbing and rappelling,
doing something else. Sure, and my but Shawnee had some experiences like when we were in Vegas, and even when we were 29 Palms, it kind of spooked her a little bit, and to where whenever I'd leave, I'd give her a little firearm safety brief, and hey, this is what you got. It's got this many rounds in it, and where it was at, and everything. And we've always done that throughout our married life. And then I'll get her out about once a year, and I go out and I just got the I like the paper plate, put the paper plate up at like, 15 yards and say, all
Yeah.
right, you got to hit it 5 times. And she'll just go bang, 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 5 times and just turn around and hand it to me. See you next year.
Done. Same time next year.
Yeah. And, but that's, for if that's what, she'll give me, I'll take it, that she at least knows how to operate it, knows how to function that one. And she's got a pretty sick 300 blackout with a suppressor on it.
Ooh, Billy.
Yeah.
Did you get one?
This is that one I built a while back,
okay.
and I've just kind of, it's been in the making. Well, it's been done for several years now, but
Yeah.
kind of built it up over time and put that suppressor on it.
Dude,
that
that's like you shoot
Yeah.
subsonic through
yeah.
that on suppressed. There's not
It's-
a better sound. Well,
Yeah.
like a lack of sound shooting. Period. I don't think.
Yeah. When that 300 blackout too, it's like that's like the one that's kind of Hollywood quiet.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
Like we'll go shoot, and I've got 6 suppressors,
yeah,
and you're shooting supersonic on everything.
yeah,
And then I'll even shoot supersonic on the blackout, and then you move to a subsonic
Right.
ammo.
all you
And
hear is the action.
You're just
Yeah.
ching whap,
Yeah.
ching whap, and people
Yeah.
are like, "The hell is that thing?"
What's so funny is that you become a suppressor snob
Oh,
too.
100%.
Because you're out there and some guy rips off a 300 Win Mag over there, and you're like,
Yeah.
"You asshole! What are
Yeah.
you doing?
And I'm like, I don't have my ears
Yeah,
on. He's
go
like,
get a
you're at a
freaking-
shooting range.
Go get a freaking suppressor, you douchebag! Like, what are you doing?
Do you not care about anyone else but yourself? Selfish.
Yeah, we've been hunting with him the last few years. My Garrett, I know I showed you the pictures of Garrett's elk he killed this
Yep.
last year, and that was his 7M M08 with the suppressor on it, and it was this 5-point bull, had like probably 3-4 cows and a couple calves with it, and that bull didn't even know which way to run.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even know where to go, and he just which was great because he hit him, he didn't run off and give him time to. I mean, he knew something was up, right? And the cows ended up going up over the top, but he was that bull, and then he just went and laid down and was going to die right there, and then until he got bumped by some other hunters. But last like 3 years, I guess we've had him and never go back.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever hunt again without a suppressor.
I agree. I agree. I have that 6.5 PRC that
Yeah.
I've been trying to get better with. And,
Yeah,
and I bought it because it's all carbon fiber.
sure.
And so it's super
Lightweight.
light.
Yeah,
And then I'm like, then you go put a freaking gigantic scope on it. You get a little bipod on it. You put the
Yeah.
suppressor on it. And I'm like, gosh, this thing's freaking heavy again.
Yep.
Like I might as well just pack around the AR.
right.
But no, it's been a fun gun for me. I finally have it dialed. I went and did a
Right.
shooting course with Rolling Bones.
Oh, cool.
And-
How was that?
Dude, it was fun.
See, that's worth it too, because if you're going to go do something like that, you can. It's kind of a similar thing. Like you could really dig into the
Well, they changed
into the
everything
internet,
I do.
right?
Everything.
And you there's information out there that you could go dig into it, but it's like what we were talking about. How much time would it take you searching the internet and practicing and figuring things out?
There you go.
Or you go spend $500 and have these guys put you through a course and show you,
Right.
and teach you and answer your questions. I mean, it's a no-brainer when you think about it like that.
Yeah, what I liked about it the most, and I'm sure a lot of people do it, but how they did it with us was they're like, okay, this is what naturally you're going to want to do, but this
Yeah.
is what we need you to do, and this is why.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so that makes sense. It's not just like, oh, I'll probably go back to my way after this.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that makes sense. I'm going to change that.
Yeah.
So like, and we were prone on everything. Mm-hmm. And so like even how I lined up behind the rifle,
Sure.
the trigger thing I pretty much had down just from shooting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize when you're at distance how much the cant of the gun matters.
Right.
So I've always seen people have little levels on their
Yeah.
scope
Like,
rings.
what are they doing that?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you're shooting 2 miles, that's cool.
Yeah.
But even out to 500, that could change
It
it.
can make a little difference, especially those guys, I mean, who are shooting like, bullseye shooters or guys shooting where that fraction of a
Yeah.
inch makes a difference.
Right.
But it's the same thing even with archery. That's a huge thing in archery.
Having level.
Yeah, and they have almost all of them in the sight will have some type of little bubble on it for that same reason. Because in archery, it's immediate, man. I mean, unless you're inside of like 20 yards, it's gonna matter. So
Well, and this was crazy too because they didn't have anything to read wind. They were just reading it themselves.
right,
And so they're just looking through spotting scopes. So we had like 3-4 coaches, and they had like
Yeah.
2-3 shooters each.
So did they have like flags out at different
Nothing.
ranges, or just watching the trees, the grass?
There
Yeah.
wasn't even, it was desert, dude. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't even trees, grass, bushes. They watched the mirage
Okay.
like go across the
Yeah.
dirt. And they kind of explained it to us. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, you guys see the mirage? We're like, yeah. They're like, what way is it going? You're like, left. They're like, okay, so the wind's going this far left. And then they're like, give me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you'd adjust over and shoot. And then they're like, if it's kind of just hovering or going up, he's like, then there's not a lot of wind, you know, and if it's
Yeah.
moving faster, you'll just kind of learn how to gauge that.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we got all the way out to like just over 1,200 yards. And I think I hit it 3 straight times. And then they made me get off the gun because my gun was getting hot.
Yeah. Well, it's just cool to know that, your equipment works, man. If you buy a solid weapon, get solid, those components and you have correct form, technique, all that.
Right.
It's not rocket science. Well, I guess there's some science, but it's not. Oh, I guess the point is like it's not magic.
Yeah.
You could do it. If you hold it down the middle, it goes down the middle.
Right.
So,
Shoot straight.
Yeah. Honestly, like the long range stuff is something that I honestly don't have a ton of.
That was my first really like, I've gone out and shot.
Sure.
Like I was pretty confident at like 300 yards.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I was drilling 800 every time.
Yeah. See, mine was all just purely, hunting related,
Yeah.
hunting ranges, so yeah, like maybe probably like 400 or 500 yards of out there shooting steel,
Yeah.
and that was about the breadth of my knowledge on when it comes to all those things. But being an artillery officer, the whole concept of minute or mills, I kind of prefer the mills, but that makes sense to me because that's what we use in artillery.
Yeah.
It's a similar type of concept. And so, I got that 20 nozzler that I picked up. I mean, we still haven't killed anything with it yet, but we've been out. It's crazy how easy it is to hit 800 yards with that thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's easy.
When we were shooting 1,200, you could see the bullet like curving.
Right.
And you could see the wind pushing it and just the vapor trail of it moving. I was like, dude, this is bananas.
Crazy, yeah. Yeah. As I've always, mine was just more, handgun, AR, shotguns, stuff like that. A lot of handgun though. And, so that's been a kind of a different one. I always just love archery so much that up until like maybe 6 years ago, I didn't even own a hunting rifle.
Just everything was
it's all archery, And then once my oldest boy Cody was getting to that age where he's going to start hunting, I was like, man, I better go get a hunting rifle. And that's actually where I picked up that 7M M08, and then he ended up getting a 308, and my dad passed him down actually kind of cool. It's my great grandfather's 270.
That's awesome.
And so and then we just kind of have added to them over the last several years of getting them all a bolt gun. So my little man's got a sweet little Ruger American it's a 6.5 Grendel.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, dude, that's what it's like not even a $400 gun.
Yeah.
Right. When I dialed up a load for that thing, I shot the tightest 5-round group at 100 yards that I have ever shot with any rifle.
Really? It
was crazy, man. Just keyholed all 5 of them. This little like $400 rifle. I'm like, holy cow, man.
Dude, I tried to build one on an AR platform.
Yeah.
And I think my barrel's garbage.
Oh.
I mean, I built it like as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
And I can't even get that thing to stay on paper.
Yeah.
Like it's bad.
It's got to be the barrel because I mean, really with the ARs, I mean, as far as accuracy goes, it's the barrel and the trigger. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of the handguard, but honestly, I don't even think the handguard is near as.
Yeah, but I mean, you'll stay on paper.
Yeah.
Like I was
so
drilling all over.
Something's up with that for sure.
And so I either just need to break the whole thing down and re-put it back together. Like maybe something's misaligned, gas, something's off.
Could be.
Or just redo the barrel, go get a new barrel and be done with it. But
yeah, I guess the barrel's one of those things you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Well, then it's funny because I have like my AR9.
Yeah.
And that's suppressed. Dude, I've
Why
built
would
that.
it not be?
Yeah, of course. I'm a snob.
Yeah. You're not an asshole.
Yeah. I'm not out there just freaking blowing people's eardrums out.
Polite young man.
Yeah. Yeah, I built that thing for like a few $100. Like over
Yeah.
the years, they would be like, "Oh, this is on sale," and I'd buy it.
I know,
And
yeah.
this is on sale, and I just have like a bin of like spare AR parts.
Right.
And I got to the point all I needed was the lower, and so I was actually adapting a PMag to a 9mm because they make like an adapter spring
So you just pulled
and carrier.
the follower out
Yep.
and the different spring and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I ran that for a while, and it had its issues, you'd
Right.
not feed every now and then. And then I was like, all right, I did a trade with one of the local gun shops and holsters, and then ended up getting a AR-9 lower.
Yeah.
And dude, that's my favorite gun to shoot, hands down.
Pretty fun one. Huh? I don't know. That's a great question. What's your favorite gun to shoot? I don't even know.
Yeah, that and the
It'd
blackout.
be easier for me to tell you which one of my kids is my favorite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that AR, and whenever we go shooting, well, because then it's a Glock lower,
Right.
and so it's a Glock mag.
Glock mags.
Then you go like a 33 round mag, and then you do a +10 extender. You're shooting 42, 43 rounds out of this AR that there's zero recoil.
Right.
And you just have a red dot and you're just freaking
All day long.
just driving nails.
Yeah, that's essentially what a MP5 is,
Exactly.
So
Yeah, dude, that's by far my funnest. But when we go shoot with people that because a lot of people, oh, dude, let's go shoot and take me out shooting. When you bust the 300 blackout out subsonic, that's the showstopper.
Yeah, that is.
I usually
the
bring
people
that
like
out
that
last.
one, yeah. That's let me ask you this. I have this for a while now. I've had this I don't shoot with people I don't know. Like if I don't personally know you, I'm not going to go shoot with you.
Well, you've never shot with me, so that kind of hurts.
Well, we've just never made it happen. But because I've just had some few bad experiences.
I can understand
Yeah,
that.
where you're just like, I don't know about this, man. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to know about if you're into shooting, are you safe about it? Are you a
What's your
jackass?
skill level?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? There's been a couple of them when I was out with my brother-in-law Kyle, where we were just looking at each other like, oh my gosh, man. All the kids behind the truck are like, this guy's a dumbass.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Dude, it seems like for me, and this is no offense to you because it's
Yeah.
not you, but it seems like it's all the old law enforcement guys that
Like
have
the-
like old. I'm talking like 50s, 60s.
they're just like,
And they have like this old snub nose revolver,
Right.
and they think that they're like freaking bobbly swagger with
Right.
it, and they can't hit anything.
Jerry Mitchellek or however
Yeah,
however he
exactly.
says his last name.
And so it seems like when I've gone in like groups, there's like that dude that shows up with his leather holster,
Yeah.
with the snub nose 357, and he's acting like he's gonna just post up and hit something at 30
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah, they're and then they can't hit shit.
Yeah, they can't hit anything.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's,
dude, you're ruining my 2x4 out there hanging the target.
Stop shooting my stand,
Like
man.
I'm watching your whole wrist dip
Yeah.
when you shoot because you're so scared of that
Yeah.
357 kick.
Yeah, and then I mean, I've only been a couple times I've gone out with like the church groups and stuff, and that one just like seriously gives me anxiety.
Yeah,
And just because you just never know how the boys are going to act,
right.
and just being like wanting to control every aspect.
Can you even
of
do
this.
that with the like young men anymore?
Yeah,
It's just not affiliated with the church.
I guess we've done it. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. Now you got me worried.
You're
I
just
was
out there
supposed
as
to,
friends.
We're out there.
well,
we're
the
out there
prophet
doing
listens
it.
to this,
Yeah,
so
so he's trying to, hey fellas. But the last time we went out, the boys were great, man.
yeah,
We had a great little group, and I was able to get some dads out that kind of knew what they were doing, and we were able to keep it real controlled and safe. And the boys were awesome, and they did really good. And I told them, hey, you guys were awesome, and next time we'll go this again, and we'll let you level up a little bit.
yeah.
And because you guys did really well, so
Yeah, they just put me on like the activities committee for the Elders Quorum, and I think that's our next activity is shooting.
yeah,
And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if the other guys know like how like into shooting I am.
right,
And so like I know one of them does. He knows I hunt. He knows I
Yeah.
have guns and whatnot. but I'm just kind of keeping quiet.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if you guys ask me, I'll get involved. If not, I'll just help you guys load rounds.
Have you ever like gone out with a buddy and they got like this new gun and they're telling you about it and you get out there and you put a target at like 25 yards, and I would say that for a majority of people that's a hard shot with a handgun.
Sure.
To say like a 12-inch steel.
Yeah.
At 25 yards.
So yeah, you go do a handgun course and you're shooting at like
right.
You're like 15 feet.
Right. Which is, very realistic. And,
right.
and we talked about that difference of being fast and also accurate. And so training both of those things, and 25 yards with a handgun is that's a great one to slow it down, slow fire it and work on your sight alignment, trigger control, all that good stuff, sight picture, sight alignment, trigger control, press and hold, let it out, feel that reset, line it up again, and see if you can replicate that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. Where if all you do is just set up a silhouette cardboard at 10 yards,
right?
Which is great.
Yeah.
That's
you need to do that
yeah,
too.
you need to do that as well. But if you're not doing the other one, then that's going to suffer as well, and you're not going to notice it. But I've had that happening several times where you have a buddy and he's up there, doing the, man, I think my sights are off. You know? And you're like, well, let me see it.
Something's wrong with
yeah,
this.
and you just bang, 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 and they're like kind of surprised that you hit it every time. And
you're like, nope,
like,
sights are on.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, And you and I am by no means. I don't want to tell. Oh, Tyler thinks he's so awesome. I am. I hold my own.
Sure.
But there are dudes that are way better shooters than me. And whenever when I teach my boys about shooting, when I teach any family members or friends that want to go out, I did not make this stuff up. This was taught to me by guys who are way better than me.
Right.
And so, it's also, if you ever are, teaching somebody something and they're like, well, I was taught to do it like this. Well, if I can do it like that, I don't care.
That's comfortable for you. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, I don't care. You asked me this, and I'm just passing on. Like, it's not like I just was sitting on the shitter. I was like, yeah, it would be awesome.
Oh, dude, if you held your feet this way,
yeah, if you pulled the trigger and then held it to the rear, and then let it out until you hear the click, really improve your follow-on shots. Yeah, I didn't come up with that.
You're like writing it down.
Right. Yeah, like that was
a great thought.
That was taught to me. Like I didn't invent any of this, but. Yeah, just it's a
I mean, I've been like that, but I think it was when I was just getting into it.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't say that I sat there and drilled the target. But, but you have those thoughts because you're like, man, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but like when you don't know what you're supposed to do,
and you're not seeing that one little flaw.
Yeah,
that if somebody was kind of knows what they're doing, they could watch you and be like, hey man, you're anticipating that a little bit, or your fingers, you get your finger too far in there and you're pulling it off, or whatever it would be depending on what you're shooting. But
my favorite thing to do is to run them empty.
Yeah,
and then let them take that last
dry
trigger
fire.
pull.
Yep. That's a good one
every time.
Yeah,
they'll dive their hands.
Mm-hmm. That's a great drill of say you're even running like a mag change drill, right? Of you put have your buddy, you stand on the line, your buddy loads, say you're going to go between 1 and 5, and you don't know what he loaded in the mag.
Sure.
And then he just puts them in, and then you run the drill, and then you have to make the change. When it happens, it's gonna be a surprise because you're not going to know.
Right.
And that's the same thing. You're gonna practice that immediate action, and then also you're going to see your front sight tip if you go click, and be like, oh, I'm anticipating it, or no, I nailed it straight back.
The one thing I haven't done is there's guys that'll do like what are they, snap caps or something?
Yeah.
Little practice rounds. I've seen people they'll load those halfway in a mag, and then when they're shooting, it goes click nothing,
on that.
and you got to clear it and go again. And that's
Yeah.
one thing I don't have any, so that's one thing I've always like.
Are you just talking about just like the dummy rounds?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing?
Right.
I just call them dummy rounds. Okay. Yeah.
just
I have done
happens.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that with handgun. It was something I've done.
I mean, I just need to get out and shoot a little more. I mean, I used to shoot quite often handguns.
Yeah.
And doing holsters, I was shooting all the time, demoing stuff with people, and then I don't know, it just became less of a priority, I guess, is the best way to put it. But
yeah, and if you can Because, you know, same thing happens. Like, even, you know, everybody thinks that like cops and military guys like shoot all day, every day. And, you know, there are certain units that shoot a ton, which is awesome. That's why they're fantastic. But, you know, I can tell you that the artillerymen in the Marine Corps aren't at the range every day, right? Like we're doing other stuff and launching giant rounds from here to Hurricane.
Right.
And, so, one thing I will in saying like being in law enforcement is I'm a huge believer in dry firing and getting your reps in of dry firing. And if you dry fire, you know, 25 times a day and you do that every single day.
So explain that for people that don't. I mean, I know what dry fire is, but explain that for
yeah,
people
so
that
like
don't
just, you know, like in my garage I have a silhouette target, you know, duct taped to the door, you know, and just being in there and you know, and you could just break it down. You just start out, you know, just obviously be safe, make sure all your crap's clear, you know, and then just, you know, coming up, doing your sight picture, sight alignment, trigger control, and dropping that shot, and do racking it, and then doing that again, and maybe do like 5 of those, and then do it coming out of your holster.
Right.
You know, do it if you conceal carry. Put it where you conceal carry it and practice going through the motions of doing that and feeling that click and watching that front sight tip when you hit that and seeing what it does.
Yeah, practice a couple of reloads, drop some mags.
Do that. You could do that with those same dummy rounds. But getting those dry fire reps in, it's you know, you can't replace that. I mean, you think about that. If you did, let's break it down to a smaller number. If you did 10 a day, you know, that's, you know, 3,650 rounds in a year that you got in that other people didn't.
Right.
You know, and by doing that, you stay fairly sharp. Your trigger control is going to stay sharp, and no matter what, you know, I can only. There's not that many absolutes in life, and the same is true in sports, and the same is true in shooting. You know, anybody that tells you that you absolutely have to do it like this, don't listen to that person.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a few little tidbits that are truths that you could say, okay, well, the people that are really, really good, they do this. And trigger control is the most important thing.
Yep.
You could take a handgun and go out to the range and pull it up, and you got your front sight tip, you know, and they always, one of the little ditties I always say is equal height, equal light. And that means that your front and rear sights are of equal height, and that you see equal sight on both sides of your front sight tip in that little cutout of your rear sight. Mm-hmm. That's what that means, right? Equal height, equal light.
I like that.
Okay. Well, if you did that and say you stand at, you know, 15 yards, okay, and you get equal height, and then you jack that front sight all the way to the right so you can barely see it, and you shoot it, you're still going to hit that silhouette target, right? You're not going to hit it right in the middle,
right?
But you're still going to hit
paper.
It. Yeah, right. And you do the same thing to the right. You know, you could lift it high and lift it low, and at like 15 yards on a human-sized target, you're still going to be on the paper.
Yeah.
But if you're at 7 yards and you slam that trigger and completely anticipate it, you could shoot that thing 5 feet in front of you in the ground.
Yeah.
Right? You're not getting nothing. So, and I'm not saying to not have good sight alignment, sight picture. Obviously, that's what we're doing. But the trigger control is the most important thing.
Yeah. And
so if you're, you know, taking that advantage of you know, dry firing safely at your house and or wherever you're at, you know, if you're wherever you may be that you got a safe place you can do that, you know, those reps are valuable.
Yeah, I think going and doing some of the what they call Tuesday night still here out at the still range, the Southern Utah practical shooting range, whatever it's called. Like going out and shooting still is cool, but when you put yourself under a timer, and then you're competing with your buddies, and you're putting a little bit of stress on yourself, and then you're reloading, and you have to run to this point and make the shot, and run to this point and make the shot. When you're doing all of that, if you've never done something like that, it kind of put it in perspective of me of how bad I was at my mechanics and whatnot.
Sure, because that's an excellent example of a time that like if you don't practice something all the time, when the stress is on, you're going to revert back to whatever comes natural.
Right.
And so you have to practice enough that doing it that way is the natural.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're under stress, that's all you know how to do.
Right.
And that's true. That's true
When
in
I
a lot
remember-
of things. Yeah.
I remember being like, wait, I have to reload? Like, I have to reload on the run?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
and it was so foreign.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and I mean, I built holsters and mag pouches, and I'd never like reloaded out of a mag pouch before.
Right.
And so like doing all that the first time, and then you're like that timer would go and you just see red. It's
funny,
that
like
you're just shooting at everything you can.
Just you're spraying and praying.
Next thing you know, you're like, you ran it dry and you're like dipping it and I got to reload. And then you like drop the mag in your hand and like set it in your pocket because you don't know you're just supposed to throw it on the ground. There's all these little things you've never thought of before. And that's the number one thing I think people do when we go out is it's a panic. But it's funny that everyone like doesn't want to drop their mag in the dirt. Like it's like taboo for them. So everyone always like drops it in their hand, puts it in their pocket. And I'm like, just throw that thing on the ground, man.
Dude, I was out with, we got a mutual buddy, Dan Papa, right?
Yeah.
He's one of my oldest buddies. He's a great dude. And we're out, this was a couple years ago, and I was out with him and his son. And we were doing some transition to handgun. And so I had my rifle out there, and his son is watching me and standing back, and I'm showing him how to do this, and I have this rifle. I think it was an AK, and I just like bop bop bop, and that thing went dry, just dumped it on the ground, and went to handgun, and it went right back, and I looked back, and the look on his face was just like. And he couldn't believe that I just threw my rifle in the dirt.
You're like, it's an AK.
Right. It's like,
I'm not doing that with my blackout.
Yeah, and he's like, man, my dad would, he takes pristine care of his right. He would never do that. But
you're like, well, we can throw gravel in that thing.
Yeah,
it'll
it's like,
still run.
But it's that practice, and realistically, I mean, it's just a tool, man. And if it goes dry and it's on, man, you're dumping that thing.
Yeah, you're on to the next.
Yeah. So there's obviously several ways you could do that depending on how you're carrying it. But I think that I've seen that too. They're just mags.
Yeah.
Dump them
throw
in
it
the
on the
dirt.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it breaks, get a new one.
If you're running an STI,
Right.
I guess I can understand that.
The HK mags for $65. Okay.
Yeah. Dude, I did write down a couple questions I want to go through with you, and I think we can expound a lot on it.
She told me to drink water while you're talking, so you go ahead.
Okay. I'll continue to talk. So I was watching someone else, and this question kind of came up. And you and I have always really bonded on this, even when we that's kind of what created our friendship, I think, was I was pretty vulnerable with you about becoming a father, and you opened up to me, and that's really where I think our bond started. So I've got this question written down, and I thought you'd be a perfect person to ask. And I wrote it down kind of funny, so I'll probably butcher it when I say it, but what do you believe that your role is as the dad in your family? Like, what do you think?
Yeah. That's a good one, man. I think, as I'm raising my boys, and they're at I got a good mix right now. I got a 9-year-old, I got a 12-year-old, I got a 16-year-old. And I often, when I think about them and well, first of all, as a dad, I think about those boys every single day.
Yeah.
I think about them every day. And I think about the thing that crosses my mind all the time is, are they ready? Are they ready to go out in the world? I think about like a deployment. Are they ready to go? Because having the experiences that I've had in my life, and I feel like I've had a pretty varied experience in life. I think we know a lot of people that they have some strong opinions and not a whole lot of experience, right?
Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite quotes is that. How's it go? I'm gonna butcher this, but it's something to the extent of a man with experience can never be at the mercy of a man with an opinion. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so applicable today, because it's your bullshit radar, right? If somebody's talking to you about something that you know about,
right,
that you're pretty versed in. I mean, how long is it going to take you to figure out that they don't know what the hell they're talking about?
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, like I was using the example. My dad's an electrician, right? He's been an electrician for like over 40 years. So if I started just talking to him about how I think we should wire a house,
he's gonna be able to shut that down.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be like 20 seconds, and he's gonna be like,
he's like, all right,
even if
bricklayer.
I Googled some shit, right, and I was all prepared. he's going to sniff that out pretty quick. And I think
he's going to be like, what gauge are you laying for a 50 amp?
Right. And so, and how funny it is that how many times we see these things that speaking of heroes. So first of all, let's talk about who should not be your hero, right? Some asshole whose job is to talk on TV.
Yeah.
That's their whole job. That's what they do. Right. Well, what's their experience? What's their background? What do they know how to do?
Right. Read a teleprompter.
Right. Like what? like X person on TV. I don't know. Maybe they're a great human being. I don't even know who's a good example. Who's somebody who's popular right now? I don't know.
That's good or bad, or
either one.
Well, like it seems like all my stuff goes to those women on The View. Right?
Okay.
So
yeah. So you think about tell me what happens in your day-to-day life that you're like, I wonder what the ladies on The View think of this.
Yeah.
I have this problem in my life that I got to solve.
I wish I could call them.
Man, I wish I could call the ladies on The View to have them walk me through what I should do here.
Yeah, that would never happen.
Never.
To me.
Like there's
never.
nothing that happened in my life that they're going to help me with, right?
Right.
So why would I look up to that person as anybody that is of value to me that I should listen to?
Right. An opinion or anything. Yeah.
Right. That like it's none. It's none at all. And how many times you hear, and since we've been talking about guns, how many times you hear some politician talking about firearms and you just go,
yeah. Ghost guns, man. That's the famous one, right?
I mean, if I have to hear another person explain the gun show loophole to me.
Yeah. I know, dude.
You're just
I feel the same way.
Like what?
But the thing is there's so many people that are, and I feel like it's almost not even their fault because they're just so conditioned to it, and the algorithms make them believe these things. But when they come out with, name it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever false gun fact they want to come out with.
Yeah.
And you just sit there and roll your eyes. And you're just like, like the one that always kills me is they always play the one when they make fun of liberals, where there's like a news, they have a news clip of a dude shooting a shotgun at a watermelon at like 5 feet, and it just obliterates it. And they say, this is what an AR-15 would do to a watermelon. Yeah. And I'm just like, come on. Like that's clearly.
That's an excellent example because like I could tell you from my personal, so I don't have the exact number in my head, but I have seen a good number of people shot. Okay. And I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like it's not in their concept of what a person looks like when they get shot is television.
Vaporized.
Yeah. This is TV. That's not what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's not what happens. And so it's these just open dumbasseries. Yeah, my favorite one of all time was the lady who was asking like, why can't we just take the high capacity mags and just use them all up, and then they'll all be empty.
Then we can't use
Problem
them anymore.
solved.
Yeah, they're gone.
Right?
They just incinerate.
Like an elected person who's supposed to be intelligent,
right?
Said that on TV where we could Google it or YouTube it and pull it up. And like that's the level of like what we said, ignorance is a choice, and it's a choice that you have made,
right?
Because you failed to just call somebody and ask them.
Yeah, or someone's like, "Hey, that's not how it works," and they're like, "Oh, geez, sorry guys, I was uninformed on this."
Right.
But instead, they just fall into the background.
Right,
You never see them again.
Yeah.
But now you have 50,000 people that think that that's facts.
Yeah. Because why? They don't have life experience.
Yeah.
They don't have real life experience. It's the guy who's talking to you about MMA fighting who's never actually been in a fight, or about use of force with police officers who's never been in a fight, never had to fight for their life.
Yeah.
Never been attacked by some random person and have felt what that feels like. Right? But yet they're going to,
they have an opinion.
Yeah. Have an opinion about that. And, one of my ones it gets my blood pressure up a little bit is just this dog shit that has been pushed and pushed about the police being racist
Sure.
and using force in a manner that takes into account the color of a person's skin.
Right.
And are there cops that bad? Sure, there are.
Yeah.
And there's
There's
guys who
also
make
accountants
mistakes.
and
Right. There's any
doctors
number of
and lawyers
yeah.
and
But just to say that in a blanket statement is so stupid. Because first of all, like, how does this get passed on that all the cops are racist?
yeah.
Like, is it a class they take in the academy
Right.
of like, okay, this is what we do to keep the POCs down?
It's like after your safety meeting in the morning, they go through a racist
like, hey,
meeting.
here's what we're going to do. Here's the game plan as we go out on the streets to make sure that we discriminate and keep these people in line.
They have to be oppressed. Keep them
Right.
oppressed,
Like I feel like I was only a police officer for like 5 years, but I think that I probably would have been at least seen or heard about one of those meetings.
yeah.
Like, is this like this grand conspiracy? You have 800,000 something police officers in the country, and like they're all on board, including all the Latino and African American and Polynesian and whatever, all the other creeds and races and nationalities that are out there who are part of as well, that are just like, hey, we really got to keep these people of color in line. It's first of all, what would be the incentive to do that?
Right.
Like, you're a police officer, you're just out on the street, going out doing your job. What would be the incentive for you to use force unnecessarily against one race of people and not the other? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make
Do
sense.
you get paid more?
Yeah.
Do you get bonuses? Do you get extra
gold
time
star?
off? Like
Yeah.
a gold? Yeah. Like what? Why would you do that? It's like this ignorance of what the day-to-day life of a police officer is like, of what you do, of what the street looks like when you go out there and do things, right? So after that, the one in Missouri with Officer Wilson, I forget the kid's name that he shot and killed, but was that Brown? Michael Brown.
I was just listening to Andy
Yeah,
Frisella, and they were
yeah.
talking about this, but I can't remember his name.
So for what they're saying to be true, okay, here's what had to happen. He lunges in the car, and this giant dude starts smashing him in the face with his fist, okay? So as that's happening, he has to take the mental time to say, okay, well, if he was white, I would do this.
Yeah.
But since he's black, I'm going to do this.
Got more lenience.
Yeah, I'm going to do this instead because he's black. I would challenge somebody. Let's put this to the test. You stand there, and I'm a little darker complected than you.
Sure.
So I'll be over here. You'll be there.
I've got slightly more.
Yeah,
white
we'll
privilege.
sit somebody right there in the seat, and one of us is going to jump on you and start punching you in your face. So when that happens, you can either, as you're determining how you're going to respond to me smashing you in the grill, you can decide what would be the appropriate action based on the person's skin color.
Yeah.
So dumbasses that say shit like that have never had these experiences that happen at full speed in real life.
Sure.
They have no concept of what that is like or what it feels like. Because if they did, that they would know that is just a moronic thing to say. Okay? Things happen in life. Good things, bad things happen. You have people out there and things get chaotic. And things go south too. And people should be held accountable for what they do for sure. And nobody is more on board with people being held accountable than police officers.
Right. Yeah. It's
Right.
and
they,
a large part of their job.
You hear these fantastically dumb things about, that they just, people don't understand, that just the functions of policing.
So my question with all this is, and this, I honestly believe this, I think it's pumped into society on purpose. I mean, I think all that's pushed on purpose by, and by who, I don't know. I mean, it's popular to say the government, the liberals, whatever.
Whoever they is.
They, right? But that's what I don't get about the whole thing is, if you could, and I guess part of it is one side of it, I don't feel like you can have a rational conversation with.
No, you cannot.
As long, also with the far right people, you can't either. And I'll be honest about that. I'm more middle than I am right, I think. But yeah, I think that all that's pushed into society on purpose to divide us.
Yeah. And you wonder about that, like, why is that? And you wonder about it. Like, is this just a sleight of hand? Keep us all looking over here so they don't see, we don't see what's going on over there. And
like
not
the
to mention
conspiracy
that
side of it, that's what they would say.
And that's why you could see, some of these coincidences or these things align that kind of make you turn your head and go, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you could see how when those things stack up, why it'd be very easy for people to slip into those just full out, conspiracy type things, right?
Right.
And I just, I think people should be held accountable, but to the actual degree of what happened, not what these folks are saying that happened. And I'm a pretty literal person, so I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
Right? How many times have you heard some super animal lover say that killing elk and deer is murder,
right?
Or killing a whatever animal is murder, but like specifically hunting, right? Well, it's not murder. You can look up murder in your state. You can look up, state of Utah, find the statutes, and you can see the elements of the crime of murder. Now, did I kill it? Oh yeah, I definitely killed it.
Yeah,
it's definitely dead.
Yeah,
for sure. We're eating it, hung on the wall. It's definitely dead, but it's not murder.
Right.
So but that's what they do. They take this concept and they find that inflammatory term that they assign it to it, and it's not accurate. They're not being accurate with their words. But why? So why do they say that? Why do they use the word murder instead of saying, "Well, I just don't think it's right to kill animals"? Well, because it doesn't sound as good.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It doesn't excite you the way it should. And then when you get like brutally honest with people, they don't like the abruptness of some of the examples I'll give. Like, okay, if I walked into your house and your lovely dog was sitting there and I shot it, was that wrong what I did? Oh yeah, I definitely committed a crime for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what was the crime? It wasn't murder.
It wasn't murder. You're not getting charged with murder.
If it shot you,
yeah,
that's murder.
That's a good point.
Right? You see what I'm saying? Like it's not. But so it's like making people be accurate with their words. Because when people aren't accurate with their words, that's on purpose because they don't have either the capacity or the articulation to clearly state their argument. Right?
Yeah.
That's why they have to use things like that.
Yeah.
And so you see that all the time. You see that all the time when people formulate arguments.
Right.
It's like my wife. I tell my boys like, hey, I'm not offended that you lied. I'm upset that you're terrible at it.
If you're gonna do it, be good at it.
Yeah, that was awful.
Well, I think part of that to excite people is a little bit of a manipulation as well.
Is. Yeah. And it's like I'm open to hear your argument, but make a good one.
Yeah,
make a good argument.
Right.
And the thing is, there's good arguments to be made. You can put some thoughts together, put some, and make a great argument.
Well, and this is coming in my head right now, so I might not articulate this the best, but so you want to say
we're going to judge you, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, going out and shooting an animal.
Right.
Say you're going to go shoot a deer.
Yeah.
And you've gone through. You have a license to do it. You've paid for it. You have your hunter safety.
Yeah.
You've done all of that, and you go harvest an animal, or you're driving down the road and you see a monster buck and you pull your handgun out and shoot it.
Right.
That's two different things.
Totally different things.
Right. And so it's like, is it physically the same act of shooting an animal? Yes.
Yeah.
But it's two completely different things.
Yeah.
Like, this is poaching. This is harvesting an animal.
Right.
And so I think there's more distinctions than just shooting one.
Well, and that's, I guess, the other element of that is that, I've just found that like a lot of people, they don't want to talk in nuance.
Yeah.
They want to simplify it is to the base level so that they don't have to take the intellectual capacity and time and energy to break it apart and talk about it. It just wants to be, nope, it's this, and sweep it off the table.
Yeah.
Done.
Next.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the next thing we can get worked up about?
So all of that was all to bring us back. We need somebody in our ear, kind of like giving us a beep, beep, beep.
Yeah, you're getting off track here, guys.
Bring it back on here. But what I think about with my boys is just am I preparing them for life? Am I preparing them for success? If my boys go off in the world and get in a fight, an altercation, and that moment is the first time they've ever been punched in the face, I am a failure as a dad.
Yeah.
Total failure. And I didn't do anything to prepare them for that.
True.
If they have financial trouble, they have a loss, they have some whatever things that happen, and I've never talked to them about those things, or I've never built that relationship that they can pick up the phone and call me and say, "Hey, Dad, this is what I'm dealing with," then I've that for me is failure, and so teaching them to prepare them for life and building that relationship with them, and then teaching them what it is to be a man, I've heard several people talk about this, but there's like these 5 points, and I have this in my house, of the 5 elements that every man should have, right? And I might slaughter these too, but it's and everybody can make up your own, but it's like having discipline, having integrity, right? Having compassion for people, having what I say, compassion, discipline, integrity, and then like a big one is being capable of violence, being able to handle yourself, right?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing that's forgotten right
Yeah,
now.
and here's why, Derek. At the end of the day, we're all a bunch of animals, especially us men.
Sure.
We're all a bunch of animals growling at each other and sniffing each other's asses and seeing who's the alpha, right? And if you're a dude and you're in a room with 10 other dudes and you are physically intimidated by those other dudes, what's the chances that you're going to go along with whatever they're saying?
10 out of 10.
It's high, right?
Yeah.
It's high, unless you're going to have you're going to be really, and if you just have that physical confidence of, not that you're going out there to fight everybody, but you're just like, you have that confidence that I can handle myself.
Like that guy might question picking a fight with me.
Yeah. Or like, hey, if they, I can, hey, you're not going to have that just be intimidated just by physical presence alone. First of all, you talk to people different. You have more confidence the way you carry yourself, and it's not being a jerk. I mean, it's just I can handle myself. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And then, but those other things too of, having integrity, what do you do when nobody's around, right? Having discipline to, who do you know that's super successful that doesn't have that, of being able to, and not everyone's perfect. Sure. You have things that you're disciplined in life, things you struggle with, right? Like I'm active, but man, my diet sucks sometimes. I eat like a coyote, right? Like I'm just a scavenger.
Yeah.
And that's one where I could definitely be more disciplined and tighten it up,
Yeah, I'm the same with all that.
But having those things, being compassionate so that you can actually, listen to people and relate to them. And, maybe take yourself out of your own body and look at it from their perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
And going back to that experience of like, for me and you growing up in the places that we've grown up with and life we have here in Southern Utah, this is the greatest place in the world. It's the greatest country in the world, right? But I remember driving around Las Vegas and just seeing those shithole neighborhoods and seeing these people just wandering these neighborhoods and thinking, if I woke up here and this was my everyday, how great would I think this country is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
probably not that awesome, and that's a real experience. That's their real life experience, that needs to be listened to and not just pushed aside and given the, hey, you need to be a patriot. You know what I mean? That's like real
what?
Yeah, that's real pain and that's real suffering and that's real struggle that people are having. And so to be able to recognize that and have some compassion for that and listen to people, hear people out a little bit, I think is important, and that comes from.
Well, that's great. I mean, that really balances out a lot
Yeah.
of what you're talking about. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like aggressive.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes,
Yeah.
this and this happens. You need
Yeah.
to walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, and you need to be able to talk to your kids, when they're upset, and you need to be able to talk to your wife and relate to her and vice versa. So I think that's an important thing as well. So
Yeah, one thing you hit on, and I know we're both this way. I haven't had as much opportunity as you yet, but just the relationship of it and I liked how you kind of circled back where it was, I need to prepare them for all these things, but there's going to be things I didn't prepare them for,
Yeah.
but they need to have the confidence in the relationship to be able to call me. And I think that's just as important as any of the rest of it is having that relationship of, or even like, hey, I know we went over this, but I just can't remember what A, B, and C were.
Sure. Yeah.
And having that openness with your father, whether it's you only have sons, so whether it's your son or daughter, I think is an important thing as anything.
Right.
And then one thing I want you to touch on too is your wife, because we talked about your sons. What's the role of being the dad with your wife?
My wife doesn't need me for crap.
Dude, we're in the same
She
boat,
doesn't.
bro.
I feel like I'm like the anchor and she's just dragging me,
My wife doesn't need me for crap.
She's awesome, man. Like her ability to put up with all of us, and
A lot of testosterone around that house.
And surprisingly, everybody talks about girls being emotional, but holy crap, could boys be some emotional basket cases at times, and her ability to kind
You or the boys?
I think all of us, we get, mine may not be tears, but it's going to be some
Huffing and puffing.
Yeah. Huffing and puffing and, and her ability to reel us back in and be patient she's a great example. Her discipline is awesome. She takes care of herself. She's very successful in the business that she's involved in. She's way more talented than me. And she's my favorite. She's my person. My person I go to.
Yeah.
When I'm struggling, that's the girl I go. That's the person I go to is her, and I just talk to her about it, and I say that this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm having a hard time with. This is what I'm stressed about. So I'm having anxiety about this, and she's awesome.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah, but it's funny too though, because like she is just so patient. I know I've told you the story about I'm giving that one of those group ass chewings to all three of them.
Yeah.
And my little man telling me, say, hey, Dad, when you were in the Marines, is that when you lost your patience? And they always joke that my wife counts to 3 and I count to 0. But patience has not been one that I'm awesome at. But she's very patient, but she's also a Garrett, who are some of the most competitive humans I've ever known. And that's still in there. And so there has been some times where they pushed her to that point, and then she let them have it. And I just sitting back, and now they're boo-facing, and I'm just like, hey, man, I told you to leave that girl alone. I told you to
Let a
stop,
sleeping
man.
dog lie,
Yeah.
man.
I told you. You didn't listen.
That's hilarious.
No, but, yeah. Anyways, I was just, I think in a world where people, so right now we both have close friends of ours, for me and for her, that are going through just terrible divorces right now. And when you think back this far in our life, how many people have been divorced,
Right.
and it just makes me just so grateful for her that she sticks with me and believes in me, has supported me in the crazy stuff I wanted to do. We've been married not even a year, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to join the Marines.
Yeah.
We're at war in Afghanistan and Iraq. 100% chance I'll get deployed. And she let me get those young man adventures out. And, I get done. I'm like, I'm going to do something really safe now. I'm going to go be a police officer in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They have a shooting every 2 weeks.
Right.
Right?
If you're not rescuing people from dog bites like St. George.
Yeah, she supported me and let me chase those things, and it's great to live back here and be trying to raise our family here and kind of pay that back to her, and at least that's kind of how in my mind that's what I think about, of like
this is home for her.
Yeah, and letting her be in here, and I love it here too, but I'm just real grateful for her for being such an awesome girl.
I think you can tell how you feel because your whole tone changes when you talk about her. So
she's.
You've talked to me a lot about wife and kids, so I knew where that was going. I was just trying to tee you up.
Yeah, I always, I tell her that all the time. I'm like, I'm really into you.
I'm really into you. See, every time my wife walks by, I'm just like, dang, smoke, smoke show.
So hot. Yeah.
Next question, and you kind of hit a little bit on it. Like, what are the qualifications of being a hero for you, and maybe what is one of your heroes?
When I think about that term, I think about you think of like superheroes, right?
Right.
And is it really that impressive that a superhero can do what they do?
Not really.
Not really. They're superheroes, right?
Powers.
Hey, the Hulk can bench press 400 pounds with one arm.
Right.
That's not really that cool.
Right. He should be able to do the things he does.
Right. But it's like, for me, it's people who do incredible things, who overcome odds, and they're mortals. They're just humans. They're just dudes. And they did this incredible thing. Right? That's what I think of. People who were willing to sacrifice themselves for or there for others. Those are the kind of people that I think about. People who for myself, who I find to be inspiring. I'll tell. It's not really a great story, but it just kind of makes the point. Like I was when I worked in Vegas, we were down Fremont Street all the time, and being down there, you would fairly regularly see like celebrities, and doing, and even like doing like overtime jobs.
Yeah.
You would go at celebrity type events, and you would see quite a few celebrities, and I think I might be the least starstruck person I know.
I could understand that.
You're
pretty level.
Yeah, like there's nobody that I'm like, oh man, I just would love to meet.
Like no one?
Not like a celebrity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like there's no celebrity that I just like, oh dude, I just love to meet that that person.
You're like Tom Cruise really does it for me.
Yeah, I just love to talk to that guy. It just doesn't. That's just a person that like for me, they're like not even a real person. Like they're no more real than a cartoon on TV, right? Like they're not nothing to me.
Yeah,
yeah. So we're down. We'd see people like that fairly regularly down there, and I remember going along and I just see this old man walking. They have that zip line down there, right? And he's just kind of walking down there, and he's just looking up, and he's just by himself. And I happen to ride by him on my bike, and I look over, and he's got a Marine Corps cap on, and it's got the ribbon that I happen to know is a Korean War.
Okay.
So he's a Korean War veteran. And so I stop, I flip it back around, and I go introduce myself to him and talk to him. And I talked to him for like probably 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sitting there waiting for his granddaughters or actually his great-granddaughters, I think. They were doing the zip line.
So he's at the bottom.
And he was just down there waiting for him. And I sit there and talked to him. This guy fought at the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. Was part of that whole withdrawal all the way to and where they got withdrawn from with the naval ships and had how many thousand Marines died of the weather. And those guys for Marines, those guys are legends.
Right. Guys
who did things like that. If you were to meet a guy that fought at Iwo Jima or the Battle of Peleliu or these things that I bet most vast. You ever heard of the Battle of Peleliu?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people have ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Probably not a ton, right? I'm surprised you. That's awesome. But that was a terrible, terrible battle, and the Marines fought there. And so guys that did incredible things that were just guys. And so I tell you that story because I remember we get back and I happened to have lunch that day and our sergeant came in. He's talking to him and I was telling him all about this guy I just met. And he was like laughing about that. He brought that up to me. He's like, man, you're like acting like you just met like a rock star.
Yeah. You're like, I did.
Yeah. And then that's what I told him. I was like, for me, that was, man, that guy's for me, that's like legendary for Marines, guys who fought at the, in Korea. I mean, when you go read the history and the stories of what happened there and what the circumstances were, what it was, and you read these things and you're like, real dudes did that.
Right.
Like not famous people, like some kid from Leeds who grew up, in the country.
Yeah, just some 18, 19-year-old.
Some guy who grew up on a farm or some guy who grew up in the city somewhere, just some guy. And they put them all together, and those guys did that.
Right.
So like guys like that are the guys who I find to be that had the ability to sacrifice their life, because in a situation like that, when you sign up and you go, you sacrifice your life.
Right.
There's no rhyme or reason to come, who lives and who dies.
Right. There's a coin flip.
Yeah, as soon as you go over there, it could happen. It could happen, and you know what the risk is when you went over there. And so, guys like that put themselves in danger and accomplish incredible feats, and drive their body and their mind to extremes. Those are people that I find to be impressive,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think for us, I mean, we were heavy into sports growing up, me and my brothers, and so it was. In the early days, it was Jordan and Stockton,
Bo Jackson,
and Malone, Bo knows, Deion Sanders, all these guys, and then now it's like I'm not a LeBron guy, Donovan Mitchell for the Jazz now, right?
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I grew up, was looking at people like that,
right?
And then just recently, it was probably a year ago, I heard this guy talk, and he was kind of talking on more role models than heroes, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking, and he wasn't putting anyone down, like, hey, there's a lot of people that try to be in the NBA, and there's not a lot of people that make it, right?
And so much of that is just genetic.
Yeah, yeah. And but he talks about, he's like, I never understood why you would wear, and don't get me wrong, I have jerseys, like I have football jerseys, I have basketball jerseys. He's like, I don't know why you would ever wear a shirt with someone else's name on the back.
Right.
And I kind of hit me, and I was like, yeah, that's actually a good point.
Pretty good point, yeah.
And he was like, he's like, what is that person to you? Like, why would you ever, and he kind of goes on this rant, and I kind of took more of it as like, like if that's Will, and he's like, oh, dude, Steph Curry's the best basketball player ever.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go get him a jersey, but I want a leg put on the back of it.
Right.
Like I want him to visualize that part of it, of having his name on it.
Yeah.
Or his number or whatever. But I don't know, it kind of turned my thoughts of, when I was a kid, that was what a hero was, I always thought.
Right. No, I think that's totally true.
Yeah.
It's these people, that's people who are famous, and
but then as you get older, you start realizing, well, mostly you realize these people have flaws, and I think that's why superheroes are superheroes, right? Like you look at Superman, Batman, you look at these guys, and they have like these crazy stories, and they do everything right, and they make the best choice every time. And I think that's put that way because it's impossible to be that. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, looking at now, dude, like I really don't know. That's why I wanted to ask you. It's like, what is a hero or someone that inspires you? Sure.
Yeah.
But like in my everyday life, I'm like, well, I would say it's my friends and brothers and sister and mom.
Yeah.
You know, like honestly.
Yeah. And I think when I think of the word hero, I think of the word that goes right with it is the word sacrifice.
Yeah.
And, you know, people that were willing to sacrifice, you know, something, you know, not necessarily your life, but sacrifice something in their life.
Sure.
You know, for somebody else.
I better throw my wife in there too.
Yeah.
I just went through my friends and brothers.
You know, yeah, but there's some incredible stories out there. You know, if you go out there, and that's a awesome, beautiful thing about listening to all these different, you know, podcasts and you know, read books and doing things like that, as you hear some incredible stories of things that people have gone through.
They're just everyday dudes.
Yeah, I read that book, Fortitude by Dan Crenshaw, and he talks about the hero archetype in there.
Yep.
And that's I think he does a much better job articulating that than what I am. Right
Either
here.
of us.
Yeah, but it's that same concept though, is of what we're talking about is you know, who inspires you to be better? Who you know, who do you look up to and be like, man, you know, if they could do that, I could do this too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like they do that. I could never do that because they have this. But they're like, man, they did that. I could do that.
Right.
You know, and it inspires you that you could go forward. You could do something like that. You know, and I tell people, you know, whenever people ever ask me about the Marines, I tell them, I'm like, dude, I did not do any. I was not special. I was not talented. I wasn't like a standout in you know, any, you know, semi-athletic, you know, young man or young woman could do that.
Sure.
But will you do it?
Right. I was going to say,
will you actually do it?
Having the discipline and stuff to go through it.
Yeah. Like, will you actually go? And
the answer is mostly no.
Yeah. And that's the difference, is that it's not that the feat was incredible. It's that, you know, they actually did it. You know, that, and I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, the feat can be incredible, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I understand.
It wasn't something that only a select few could do this thing.
It wasn't that it was only incredible.
Yeah.
But
it was that, you know, it was something they were willing to do and willing to do all that sacrifice to get there, you know? And, you know, I know the last time, I was on here, we talked about dads quite a bit, and I probably wasn't the most generous to paint the picture about my dad. And
I'm guilty of that a lot on here too.
But I will say, you know, that there was some pretty incredible lessons he taught me as well, you know, from watching him. And my dad loves me, you know, and that means a lot. And I could call my dad, and I could, if I was, and he would listen to me, he would talk to me, he would, you know, and I know my dad loves me, and you know, we've had our differences. We've definitely got into it many times, and have had some issues, but he's had some nuggets in there that have been really meaningful to me. And if you don't mind, I'll share one with you.
Yeah.
I was when I got out of law enforcement, you know, I had a pretty big struggle with some pretty depression, and you know, that was such a tumultuous time of my life, just spiritually, physically, morally. It was a very low point, and feeling. It's the first time I ever would say that I had, like, you know, suicidal ideations, like, you know, and I never attempted, you know, but just had those thoughts creeping your head, which is embarrassing to say, you know, but at least it was for me at that time. You know, it's something I felt a lot of shame about. And it's just, I was like, it was like these things that I loved so much, and I had this, the way my life went, of like I had to choose, and that wasn't what I was going to be able to keep doing, and that hurt me a lot, you know. And then it hurt me a lot when my friend John was killed, who was, you know, my closest friend, and he was killed in a motorcycle accident. He'd been drinking and driving, and that really threw me for a loop. And it was just a pretty rough time. And I remember expressing this to my dad about how I'd done these things, but that I just felt like I was I wasted all this, and that I had just like devolved into just trash after doing something that I felt so much pride in, like was had so much value in that, like as a person, right? And so my dad told me, he said, if you took all your accomplishments in your life, right, every one of them, and they were all trophies, right, and you put them up on your mantle there, so you could see all your accomplishments in life, all these trophies, right? He said those trophies are not who you are, right? That thing that's inside of you, that thing that pushed you and drove you to accomplish all of those things, that's who you are. Mm. And that can never be taken away, right? And that's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really good. And that helped me a lot of saying, that's still in there. That spirit, that little fire in there that drove you to do those things that other people didn't want to do. That's still there, and I hope I can pass that on to my boys. That sure. Mentality of that. I think that's a great one, and I give my dad a lot of props for that. That was a beautiful thing to say to me when I was having such a hard time.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing that you do good with your kids, with your boys, is like, I think your boys are, and I've never even met them.
Yeah.
Right? I just know them from stories that you've told me.
Yeah. Videos on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or whatever, yeah.
Pictures and social media posts. What I love about what you're doing with them is you're giving them so many experiences, whether that's sports, whether it's volleyball, whether it's MMA. You're giving them reasons to be confident.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that gets taken away from kids a lot.
Right.
Even if they are doing things, it's not presented to them in a reason to be confident.
Yeah.
And win or lose, you have those experiences like we've been talking about. And I don't know, I've been on a confidence kick the last couple of weeks. I think it's because I see so many people that don't have it.
Yeah.
And some people shouldn't have it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you haven't done anything to gain it, you probably shouldn't have it.
Right.
But and that's something that's missed as well. Yeah. People think that these people are just born confident. Yeah. And it's like, no, they've done things to become confident. Yeah. And I see some people, and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, you've not really done anything, so I can understand why you're in some depression.
That just made me think of my my 16-year-old, and he's getting big. He's past me. He's already taller than me.
Is he?
Yeah. And I'm 6'2". He's 16-year-old. He's already past me. He's so he's kind of starting to get some of that young man confidence, and I always rough him up a little bit, and he'll tell me, "Down, I'm just gonna punch you right in the face," and I'll just and my reaction is I'm just like, I can take a punch.
Yeah, wouldn't be the first time.
That's fine. I can take a hit.
Yeah, I don't know why, dude, but I have a feeling to share this, so I don't know if someone needs to hear it or if it's something that I just need to read for myself again. I found this, believe it or not, I believe it's on TikTok. Yeah, so there was this thing on TikTok that I saw, and it kind of hit me, and it, like you were talking about your dad, I don't feel like I do a good job giving my dad the props that he deserves on this sometimes, just because like mental health gets brought up a lot, struggles get brought up a lot, and that's what I relate to my dad a lot more than, like my older brothers had a different dad than I did. Yeah. They had the more active, more sports oriented, more, where me and my little sister had more of the depression, sitting on the couch,
the crumbling, coming apart.
Yeah. But so I had this quote come across my feed, and I saved it, and like I've kind of went back and looked at it a couple of times, and I really don't have like hatred for my dad at all. Right. I believe that he had some faults, and they ended up overtaking him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to put it. But there's this post that says, "To my children, I'm sorry for the unhealed parts of me that in turn hurt you. It was never a lack of love for you. It was only a lack of love for myself. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, damn, dude. Like, I almost thought it was like, and I wasn't in like this,
Yeah.
state where I was like looking for an answer or anything.
Yeah.
I was just kind of scrolling through stuff, and that I saw that and it just punched me in the gut. And I was like, and I think it's because it kind of put it in words,
Right.
how I had felt about my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I knew he loved me,
Sure.
till the day that he took his own life. I knew he did. He just got so far down that darkness,
Yeah.
and it's, I mean, it was my role to play. It was my cards that were dealt, and I accepted that,
Yeah.
where that I was kind of there as he was falling, mentally. But I don't know. When I read that, I was like, dude, this is awesome. And so when you
Yeah,
were sitting there
that's solid,
talking
yeah.
about your dad, I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like I should share this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's good. I think it's real easy to look back and pick your parents apart. But I do feel like I need to acknowledge some of the really kick-ass things that they did as well.
Yeah.
My dad, when I was little, I thought he was a superhero, man.
Sure.
I really did.
Me too.
He was super athletic. He was in great shape. He was freakishly strong. There's that primary song that talks about, my dad, he could throw a ball so high you think it's going to break the sky. And I remember that. I remember my dad cranking these balls in the air, and I just, could not believe how high he could throw that ball. And just seeing him do some of these things, and he was so athletic. We have a picture of him somewhere. He was got his black belt in like Taekwondo back in those days, and I even did some little competitions and stuff. But we have a picture of him somewhere. We had an 8-foot ceiling in our trailer, and of him jumping up and kicking the ceiling. Like 5'11" or 6 foot is about how tall he was, but
Yeah.
he would. He had this dry sense of humor, but looking back, it was so funny. Some of the things he would do, me being a little smart ass kid, and I go to science class, and I come home and I'm telling him how my science teacher showed us this thing with the eggs, of how like you put it in your hand
You can't.
and you can't break it because
Yeah.
of the way the eggs, you have to like cheat and use your fingers. And I'm telling him all about it, and he's just like, yeah, that's not true. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm showing him, I'm like, you can't do it. And he's like, he puts his hand like this. And he's like, hey, well, your problem is you're squeezing too hard. You can't really squeeze hard. You just got to flick your wrist. And it just goes, boom, and just blasts it all over the kitchen.
Oh, really?
And just be like, wow, that was awesome,
You really are a superhero.
Yeah, and then him telling me, you can clean that up.
Point proven.
I bring him an apple, and say, hey, Dad, will you cut this apple in half for me? And he'd just grab it and just go like this and just rip it in half.
Jeez.
And just hold it out to you. Here you go.
Lou Ferrigno. I didn't know he was your dad, dude.
Yeah, he grew up on a ranch kid, very active, and just had this incredible grip strength and was very athletic, and just physically so tough. I mean, like I just honestly, I don't even know if they make dudes that hard anymore. Like just physically tough, and I'll tell you a great story. He hates it when I tell this story.
Okay.
I do not
Those are my
exaggerate.
favorite ones.
Yeah, I do not, and that's why I tell him. I say I do not exaggerate this story. This is a true story that happened. And he'll say, I know, but you just, and you just kind of the way you make it sound. And I'm like, so you're saying it's because I'm a great storyteller.
That part's true.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, but, and that's the thing is he's also not the kind of guy that would ever tell a story like this, right? So my dad, when we were first little, we didn't have, much money. My mom and dad, got pregnant a little bit young, and I was born when they were 20. And my older sister was born at 18. And so, they got married and didn't have a job. My dad went to a tech school, literally went and looked at all the jobs you could do and found the one that has the highest entry level pay. And that's what he became.
Sure.
That's how he picked it. Just purely based on provide what's the best number to provide for the family. Electrician. So he's out there working underground in the mines out in southwest Wyoming, and he's not making enough to cover everything. So he's picking up side jobs. He would go and he would be work as security guard at the dump, right? He would get jobs on ranches, or he would get jobs building fences for the Forest Service, or he would get jobs. One of them, what I'm leading to, is he was worked as a logger, just not when he's doing his main job, but he's in his spare time. He's going up into the mountains and getting hours in logging just to provide for us, right? And so the guy he was working for ended up being my 5th grade school teacher.
Oh, that's funny.
Mr. Sellers, yeah. Anyway, so he goes up there. He goes up to start logging, and have you ever seen like how they do that? How they got the belt, and they climb up and they top the trees and they work their way down, right? So I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but he's running a chainsaw, and it somehow slips out of his hand, and it drops down. He lets off, and the chainsaw comes down and hits his thigh, and cuts into his thigh. Right?
Oh my God! And he's hanging on a tree.
Yeah. So remember now, I can't remember if he was hanging up on the tree or if he was down, but somehow he was wet and it slipped, and the chainsaw hits him in his thigh and opens up his thigh, right? And so he goes down, goes to the truck, takes a rag and duct tapes his leg, finishes his 8 or 10 hour shift, and then drives himself to the hospital and gets X number of stitches. I mean, he's still got a huge scar to this day on his thigh from that. Right?
Jeez.
So
yeah, don't make them like that anymore.
Right. So I think about that. Like, why did he do that? It's because his number one concern at that point was providing for his wife and his kids.
Yeah, his why was very strong.
Yeah, and we needed that money, and so he stayed up there. How painful was that?
Yeah,
working and finishes out.
And I'm sure he's thinking like, well, what's the alternative? I had to finish my day
and then
out.
He goes back and drives himself to the hospital, right? And I think about that, of like, dude, they make dudes that tough anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't know that they do.
No,
in our soft environment that we live in now. And two, that when you're a dad, that you provide for your family, and that was a great example for me as a young kid. Obviously I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my dad listens to this, but if he did, sorry for telling that story to Dad. But it's an awesome story.
He's like, it's no big deal. I just lost a quarter of my thigh.
Yeah, it's an awesome story. And I don't remember how many stitches he got and everything, but it was a lot,
Sure.
Freaking chainsaw.
That's insane. That's crazy, dude. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap it up.
Yeah. It
Positive dad end.
Yeah, man. It was, to wrap it all back up, man. If you're going to have heroes in your life, have it be people that are real human beings, real people who inspire you to be your best self and inspire you to accomplish things that maybe you feel like are a little bit out of reach, but they give you that little fire inside of you to be willing to try it, and if worst case scenario is total failure, so what?
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Reload and go again.
Yeah. I mean, you'll still probably be further than if you didn't.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways,
man.
Yeah. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Episode 53 in the books.
Nice job, man. You're doing great.
Oh,
it's
dude,
fun,
thanks.
man. We'll do it again.
Yeah. I mean, really to kind of end this, I just want to throw you some appreciation too, dude. We kind of created a bond out of thin air, making some holsters for you. And
it's kind of funny how that works. So just people get put in your life. Because, we knew of each other, but, didn't really even know each other, personally that well.
Yeah.
But just had some Pineview, Washington connections.
Sitting down in the old Washington house making holsters.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, we had some moments and some bonding that, it's helped me a lot. And I had a lot of fear going into being a dad and having a son, and you were a big part of kind of calming my fears. Man. So I appreciate it.
They're like, having kids it's like having dogs, but you can teach them better tricks.
Kind of. I can put my dogs outside. All All right, this is Tyler Campbell, my main man, Tyler Campbell. Thanks, man.
Awesome,
We'll
man. Thank you.
same time next year.
For sure.
Okay, thanks, dude.
All right, bro.